To malware attacks, remember, all security incidents can be considered an exploit, but not all exploits involve the usage or delivery of a malicious software or malware payload. A malware attack is a common cyber attack where malware, typically malicious software, executes unauthorized actions on the victim's system. The malicious software, also known as a virus and/or a worm, encompasses many different types of attacks, such as ransomware, spyware, command and control botnets, and more. Like other types of cyber attacks, some malware attacks end up with mainstream news coverage due to their severity. An example of a famous malware is the WannaCry ransomware attack. Which brings us to ransomware, a popular form of malware that encrypts key files and holds them for ransom, usually committed for cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin, over 90%, or Monero. Ransomware eventually evolved from misleading fix apps, for example pop-ups, to fake antivirus tools and bogus fine websites. The average ransom demand has more than doubled since 2020, and over 30% of the victims are in the United States. The newest trend is ransomware as a service, RaaS, on the darknet, which is a subset of malware as a service. In a ransomware campaign, the first phase is installation. The crypto ransomware could install itself from an attachment in an email or a webmail. It could be a drive-by website through casual web surfing, or it could be a remote Trojan on a peer-to-peer file sharing site, or something installed off of a USB or a FireWire drive external to the system. It installs itself after the system boots up. Then, the malware contacts a command and control server or an intermediate bot belonging to the attacker or the crime syndicate on the dark web. Next, in phase 3 is the handshakes and the keys. The ransomware client and server perform a handshake, and the server generates 2 cryptographic keys. One of the keys starts encrypting every file it finds with common file extensions. A common target is the My Documents folder in a Windows operating system. Then a screen displays giving a time limit to pay up, in cryptocurrency typically, before the criminals destroy the key that decrypts the files. Keep in mind, the attackers will give the victims the keys about 50% of the time, and you're going to show up on a list of victims who pay ransoms. Trojans are malicious code and programs that masquerade as legitimate applications or are actually embedded in programs that have some or all of the functionality. Trojan horses have no replicating abilities, like a virus that attaches itself to executables or replicating worms. Trojans can either be a renamed benign program, or the Trojan code can exist in an operable application, as mentioned. Trojans can also be part of a more elaborate distributed denial of service or botnet attack. And as you can see on the left, the Trojan can be a game, a utility, a system tool, device drivers, patches, updates and upgrades, freeware, shareware, or system updates. Remote access Trojans, or RATs, are a variant of Trojan malware engineered to permit an attacker to remotely control an infected computer to some degree. Once the RAT is running on the compromised system, the attacker can send commands to it and receive data back in response, for example, a keylogger or capture a webcam. The server can be a command and control server that is part of an automated botnet. The RAT-infected PC running the RAT server program can capture webcams, log keystrokes, perform remote shell, including PowerShell, update the version of the RAT, and download and upload files, either directly to the command and control server or to an intermediate bot. Let's compare viruses to worms. A computer virus is a type of malware that spreads between computers and causes damage to data and software. Worms are a special form of self-replicating virus that generally spreads without user action or intervention. Viruses are distinctive in that they typically attach to executable files to disrupt systems, cause major operational issues, and result in data loss and data leakage. Worms distribute complete copies, possibly modified copies of themselves, across networks. The virus code spreads from the document or software it's attached to via networks, drives, file sharing programs, or infected email attachments. A worm can consume resources, infiltrate data, or simply cause the CPU on the system to waste cycles. This is a denial of service attack that results in the computer, usually a server, becoming unresponsive. Spyware is often defined as malware intended to penetrate a device, collect personal data, and then send it to a third party without permission. Spyware can also refer to legitimate software that monitors data for commercial purposes, like advertising. Technically speaking, practically all smart devices and IoT components are potentially spyware. Bloatware is unwanted and potentially harmful software preloaded onto new devices. Bloatware is often pre-installed by vendors, manufacturers, or carriers as a form of marketing to put services directly in front of new customers. Earlier, we mentioned key loggers. Let's dig deeper. Keystroke logging is typically done by malicious code that records keystrokes and sends data back to command and control servers. Spyware uses key loggers to capture passwords, credit card information, and other personally identifiable information. Software can also be used to track employees or family members to adhere to acceptable use. Keylogger detectors are special mitigation tools. These are installed often in VPN agents, like the Cisco AnyConnect mobility client. Examples of keylogger programs would be PAL Keylogger Pro and KeyGhost. Rootkits are a type of malware that can give a threat actor control of systems without user consent or knowledge. Root, admin, super user, or system admin are all interchangeable terms on different operating system platforms. These are dangerous because they're designed to hide their presence but get low-level access to the system. A threat actor who has placed a rootkit onto a machine, often via phishing email, or if it's a privileged insider on a USB fob, can remotely access and control it to deactivate the antivirus software, spy on activities, delete logs, steal sensitive data, or execute other malware. For example, hyperjacking a hypervisor in a data center. Logic bombs are malware triggered by events, such as mouse movement or code execution, the date and time of a major event, file access through a file system, the number of times code is run, or triggering the zero-day attack on a national holiday or a major sporting event like the Super Bowl or the World Cup when people let their guard down.